Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Staring into the Sun. Now, 2 weeks in a row that we're seeing you in person.
Hey, what's
Yeah,
up?
here we
Hey
are. Here we
guys.
are.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're also hearing us too. If you're listening as well, we're still doing that jam. You can listen to us, but now you can see both of our beautiful faces from Staring into the Sun. I am one half of the duo. See the half of the screen. This half is me, John, one part of the duo, and that I gotta go
Yep.
backwards. That guy
Yep. They'll
is.
get it. Yeah, I'm Rob Gibson. I'm a psychologist working out of Colorado, and both of us have the keen interest in matters of the head and the heart. So you're here. You found us because you're interested in that too, matters of faith and psychology, and how we can bring those together to better understand what it means to be a person in our world, and ultimately, hopefully, how to improve your life. And so that's what we're here for, is to kind of see what collides there between head and heart,
Ooh,
and what we can find there.
the
So
beautiful collision of head and heart. Man, somebody
that's right.
really good looking wrote that, I
Intelligent
think.
came up with that. Man.
Yes, we love the beautiful collision, man. So much good stuff happens there. So we're going to jump in.
Yeah.
Actually, we're kind of paving the way
Well,
here, right, for a
Yep.
summer series.
Yeah. Before we jump into that,
Yeah.
just want to remind you while you're here, subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell, subscribe on your podcasts. If you like what you hear, share it with other people. We're working on making them fully available to you, the whole clips, as well as smaller clips that you can engage with and share on social media, and share with other people. Ultimately, our hope is that we can share the good stuff that's from this with other people. Got lots of variety of listeners, pastors, therapists, members of the church, just kind of ordinary friends and people that listen because they're interested in these issues. And wherever you are on that, we just would ask that you continue to join us, and also share with us if you have topic ideas or interests of things you want us to engage with. But ultimately, just appreciate you subscribing and sharing with other people, telling other people about what we're doing.
Yeah,
So
man.
thanks for doing that.
Hit it. Hit the subscribe button. We're
All
doing
right.
it. So on
Yeah,
to
yeah.
our summer topic. Well, it's kind of not summer yet; it's spring, but we're going to launch into just some conversation about relationships in general. I mean, a lot of what we talk about is relational, really, but we want to really focus in on how we can help you as a listener and as a viewer now to experience better relationships, whether that's in a marriage relationship, an intimate relationship, whether it's in a friendship, a parent relationship, a church community relationship, how we can talk about things that will help you experience relationships better in your own life. So we want to kind of talk up through the spectrum, and today we're just going to kind of riff around the idea of why relationships matter, why they're important, and how our spirituality and our mental health impact relationships, right? And kind of just unpack the reality of why relationships are important before we begin into kind of this journey, this foray into the relational realm throughout the
Yeah.
summer. Yeah.
Yeah, our plan is to kind of dig into some conceptual ideas, bringing kind of both of our experience to bear, right? Psychology and spirituality, and also to get into the practical, about how do I make my relationships, how do I live in such a way that my relationships would be more meaningful, more engaged, more connected. I could deal with conflict better, a variety of areas we want to enter into. So we'll hope you join us throughout the summer, engaging in matters kind of depth as well as practicality. So we'll try to do both each time we talk. So
Yeah.
stay
I thought
tuned
we'd
in.
begin maybe just from your perspective as a psychologist. I have had this situation in my life where I had a person that was involved with me, and they used to do things to incite me to anger. And I would throw like bikes over fences, and I would get that we would be in such conflict that they would run through the house and lock me out of rooms. So I would go upstairs, and the bathroom would be locked. So that has impacted me deeply in my in my
No,
relational journey. And I would wonder if
that's
could you help
interesting.
me just dig through all of the trauma that I experienced in my life from that
That's interesting. You
Rob was
probably
like,
have
you were all serious. Like, what is he talking about?
emotional issues to unpack. Kind of like living with someone who would when you get a gift for Christmas, for example, of gummy bears, and then
Oh
they go
yeah.
through and steal them from you.
Oh yeah. Or when
Uh,
you get $800 worth of cologne and I get my
Man,
gone fishing.
man, there's just all sorts of relationship issues. So you might have unspent rage that might be
Yeah,
an issue.
I don't know if I call it
So,
rage, but yeah, but isn't that funny? Our relationships, though, and I'm in jest. I love my relationship with my brother. I loved it back when I
we're
was
talking about
referring
me
to
for
my
anybody who's
brother,
not
to Rob.
catching. Yeah.
Yeah, we had some fun moments I think we had a pretty good relationship growing up. At least I do. I don't know about you.
It's gonna come out this summer,
Right.
just all the skeletons.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
relationship is important, and it impacts us into who we are, today, right now, here in the present. And I don't know. I think from just a
Let's talk
psychological
about why.
perspective, yeah, I was
Yeah.
curious. You go first. Why do you think relationships are important? Why do they matter? Why do we need them? What are they for? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to jump into that, and I want to speak to one other thing first, which I think is sometimes we're put off by these conversations. I know I've experienced this in the church where there can be a feeling of being put off from these types of conversations because it kind of feels like all roads lead to the intimate partner marriage relationship conversation, and it kind of feels like, well, if I'm single, or if I'm widowed, or if I'm not straight, like, can I, this conversation is for somebody else, and so great, another talk about relationships. I've heard that from people, like, oh great, church is doing another 8-week series on marriage. Awesome. uh, I guess I'll check out for 8 weeks because that's really painful for me, for some reason. And so I want to give some clarity to why we're talking about this, and I think that's a really good place to start. Why talk about relationships? And I think I want to encourage you as a listener. We want to talk about relationships broadly, because they matter for everyone, whether you're in an intimate relationship like a marriage, or whether you're struggling with a relationship with your child, or whether you're estranged from a friend and you're in pain and you don't know what to do, or any number of things. And so we want to engage with all of that. So I would ask that you kind of keep that in mind. Don't tune us out. We're not just heading
Yes.
towards
In other words, stick with us.
marriage.
It will be worth
Yes,
it.
hang in there. So man, so back to your question, why relationships? And I think when I think about my work with people come to me because they're suffering. Usually they're getting some sort of signal, like, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm having traumatic responses, I'm addicted to alcohol or a substance. I pretty much always can know that there's some sort of issue that's wrapped up in relationship that's relevant to what's going on. And if we can unlock what's going on there, usually somebody's stuck in some way in how they're relating with other people or themselves. If we can get them unstuck and get them connected with a person, help them get what they need from their relationships, a lot of the things that are presenting themselves that are problematic often can be improved by honing in on relationship. It's kind of a core aspect of what I think it means to be a person. From the very beginning, we enter the world in relationship, primarily with our mother, father, whoever's there at the beginning. We're in relationship, and everything about our survival depends upon our relationship with someone. We don't make it if we don't have one. And man, and this actually goes, interestingly enough, this goes even further back. Not just humans, but our primate relatives. Depending on what you think about what science has to say about that, we won't get into that today. But our primate relatives, a study on needs in primates, and if you kind of a pretty prominent study was looking at what are primate children, the babies, what do they go for? And if you give them a situation where they can go to a soft and cuddly, like fake ape-looking object and a metal-looking ape-looking object that provides milk, they'll choose the soft, comforting presence, right?
Mm,
It's like, oh man, there's something about us that needs relational connection, and that is old, like older than old, right? Like that's very old.
yeah.
That's what I think about it personally. That's a like a biological, psychological view on it. Like this is in us from the very beginning. This is a very old thing, and it helps us adapt to life and all of the terrible things in life. It also can make life really terrible, but
Right.
but it's a basic part of what it means to be a person, I think.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious what kind of what spiritual perspective would have to say about relationship as well. I'm kind of speaking more to my side of it.
I mean, there's
what do you
all
think about it?
kinds, right? My mind, it goes right to the beginning, and God creates man, plays in the mud, creates man from the dust, and goes on a little bit and says, "Well, it's not good for man to be alone." It seems like a simple statement, and we have Adam and Eve, in the garden and relationship with God and all the rest of humanity. But I think that statement speaks something to the heart of what God intended when He created, and the perception that creation was communal at its heart, and God created everything to need everything else. That the all of creation worked in harmony together, relied on the other for sustenance, for continuation, and even the heart of God in the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, I believe, kind of speaks to this relational character of God and how He created in us, that there's this mutual emptying for the other, there's this mutual reliance upon the other between the Father, between the Son, and between the Holy Spirit. And when God created man and said it's not good for man to be alone, and created a woman, that at the heart of that is just relational need, not even necessarily about male and female, but just at the core of who we are as humans, that I believe God created us deep in the core of, and you kind of hinted at this, but deep at the core of who we are as people, we're created for a need for other, and we find the fullest version of ourselves within relationship. And I think we can see that just by the fruits of not being in a relationship. We just spent 2 years, through COVID, experiencing a lot of that reality of disconnect and of relationship, or severing of face-to-face, in-person interaction with people. And we know it impacts us physically, it impacts us mentally when we're disconnected from the thing that we were created to need. We know, I think from even just a scientific level, we know that it impacts the person in a negative way to be severed from relationship. So I think it stands to reason, both physically and spiritually, that we were at the core of who we are. We were created to need to need the influence or impact of someone else upon our experience of life.
Yeah, and I think if you follow the thread of that, up until and you can see it in other places throughout Scripture, I think, but with the advent of the incarnation of Jesus, right? That's also an emphatic statement that the pathway to redemption is also a entering in, in relationship, right? It's not like an adoption of an idea or an ideal. It is in a relationship to a person, right? And I would agree with you. When we cut ourselves off from connection with each other, when connection breaks down, like when there's neglect or abuse, or even something like looking at how the use of social media affects us and cuts us off from authentic engagement with another person, you can see how issues increase. I mean, and there's definitely some research evidence suggesting the impact on especially adolescents, but also just us as adults. I even just see it in my own personal life. I can see the negative effects when I'm not visually, bodily, mentally engaged with someone around me. It doesn't matter if I'm listening and I'm on my phone doing something, right? There's a notable decrease for both people. And then if you sustain that out over a long period of time, you experience a deficit. And this is something I work with people a lot. I might have somebody come and see me for like a surface problem, not a surface problem, but like the obvious problem, like I'm abusing alcohol or I'm addicted to pornography. That's a common one. And as we dig into it, what becomes glaringly clear is, oh man, I've had this long running deficit of connection with this person that is close to me. And oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about this behavior that I'm doing that I want to change. It's about this need that I have that is just in deficit, and I don't know how to fix that. I have no idea how to break the barriers or get unstuck and become close with my spouse again, or how to become close with my child again, or how to break the barriers of tension between me and my friend. I don't know how to do it. That's evidence that supports this idea that relationships are just vitally important.
Yeah. And I think also that when we do experience restoration of relationships, the opposite of that also speaks to its validity. When I'm restored, and how I feel that deep in my bones when something that was broken, that I was missing or was not present in my life, and then it's restored, and the joy and fulfillment that I experience when I can walk back into relationship after having had it severed. It's almost like you realize the thing that you needed all along, that you maybe didn't recognize you needed in the midst of its brokenness, and I think I see that a lot, like coming back to church now, the community gathering back together post-COVID, when I see folks who enter in again after not seeing them for a long, long time, and they just talk about, oh man, I didn't realize how much I was missing being in person, in the flesh, being, like you said, bodily present. And it's a sneaky thing too, because our world really has conditioned us to have different versions of connection that we are kind of replacing bodily connection with. As we become more and more of a digital and virtual world, we have these stand-ins for, and that's an interesting thing. I think we'll talk about that kind of down the road a little bit more. But this bodily presence thing, how it's different than a virtual interaction. And I think we experience a lot of that reality within our current modern world, this replacement of in-person, face-to-face connection, and how that's different.
I think that's also, as I reflect back, that's what made COVID also so difficult, because here, not only is that present, the availability of technology to separate, but also the bodily presence of someone else close to you now became very fraught, right, with risk. Like, if I see your face, it might be dangerous to me or someone I love or someone I care about. I'm being encouraged to, and this isn't me critiquing one way or the other. This is just me evaluating what has that done to us, the fact that has happened, and like not seeing faces, being distant and apart, not touching. Like, clearly, I think maybe it's just clear to me. I saw in my own experience and people that I worked with that was so needed, and because it wasn't there, it was difficult. I mean, one practical example is, because of Colorado law, I was considered what was the word, like a needed service or something. I forget what they were. An approved worker.
Essential.
So anyways,
you were
essential. Which I have all sorts of issues with that. But anyways, so I was deemed essential by the state. So I came into the office, and we undertook our safety measures, but it was fascinating the amount of people that wanted to come in to see me, despite fear, legitimate fear about what could happen if we got together. But kind of doing the math and realizing, like, I am so in deficit of in-person contact with anybody besides who I'm living with, which, if who I'm living with is a disaster, then I need this so bad to have some different type of connection. I had lots of people choose to come see me because I was like their only in-person option to have a contact with another person. which spoke a lot to me about how that time affected us.
Hmm.
And that's just me resonating with what you're saying. When we have the resumption of being able to
Yeah,
be
it's like,
together,
oh wow, I needed that, you know.
ah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
almost
nice
like
to
a
see you
breath of
smile
fresh
back at
air.
me.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's no wonder that we do. It's almost like an escalation of dysfunction too, because of our current modern world, you know. I deal with all of this, or deal with this all the time in the church world. We're just talking constantly about the need for rhythms and engagement and all of those things, and we live in a culture that just replaces, you know, face-to-face interaction with virtual interaction, and because that's the world we live in, and it's so easy to just and also too, our world is just moving further away from one another. I was acutely aware of this when a couple years ago I went to Ukraine and took a trip there, and everything in Vatnyarka, the city we were in, speaking of Ukraine, at the time there was no war there, but everything in the city there was just within walking distance. So we'd get up and go together and walk to the grocery and walk back to the house and have food, and then we'd walk to church or walk to this ministry area. But everything that was needed was within walking distance, you know. And then I flew back to America, and we live in a world, if you think about it, where everything is not in walking distance. Everything is like your life circle, your radius is like 50 miles, you know, of acceptable distance to be, whether it's groceries or, you know, social activities or whatever, which again puts another layer of distance and a layer of disconnect from your ability to stay consistently connected with a circle of social relationship, you know. And so I think that even plays a part in just how we exist in relationship, where we've moved from being a people probably even just 50 years ago, where you were much more centralized in your relationships and how often you were in face-to-face contact with people who needed you and you needed them, to this expanding circle then where I'm less in need. And now even like with Amazon, I don't even have to go to the grocery store. Like most of the time I order my groceries and they show up at my door, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, less in need and in greater need, right? Because that means increasingly fewer and fewer people could see that I'm in pain.
Yeah. Oh
right?
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
The hiddenness of pain, right? Where fewer and fewer people will see it. And then we can generate this idea that, you know, other people aren't in pain, and so I probably shouldn't show mine because, you know, that would be off-putting or, you know, depressing or something. And this, I think, why, you know, people like Brene Brown, their work is like so attractive to people, is because it's like, oh, somebody's speaking to this truth that, like, wait a minute, something that may have been obvious, which is vulnerability, right? Like you can't help but if you have to walk to the grocery store with other people for them to see you limping, right? You can't help but be vulnerable in some sense. Or people might be more likely to see it, but with having our lives so separated, you can go so long of a time without being vulnerable with anyone. Yeah. So no one could possibly know you're hurting, and then you're not engaging in relationship in ways that are giving and receiving, and getting what you need from people and being able to give to people. So,
and we lose the skill too. You know, we talk about that a lot with our leadership team here at the church, just wanting to provide opportunities for connection. But it's not just about providing opportunities for connection. It's we have to reteach why connection matters and how to do it. You know, because we're out of practice. I mean, if you think about it, it's how do you connect? And so it's not even just a question of why we need to connect. You know, it's how do we even do it? And that's why I'm excited about this conversation moving forward, Robbie, is to talk about, you know, why we need connection, to talk about how to move through some of the brokenness and that is the
where we get stuck.
Yeah, the realities of our disconnection, whether it be, you know, in a parent-child relationship and a significant other friendship thing, whatever it is, the outflow of our disconnection leads to some brokenness in different ways. And so we want to talk about that, like how to navigate those, but we also want to talk about how to be in relationship. I think that's such a valuable thing to talk about and so needed in my own life. I know I need it too, to relearn, because I'm out of practice so often. And all of us, I think, could probably identify with that. Just it becomes very scary to re-enter when I don't know how to be vulnerable, or when all that I have in my experience is when I'm vulnerable, I'm hurt, So like learning how to enter in and experience relationships in ways that I need, but that are healthy too,
Yeah. Because they're risky, because when they go bad, they're painful and can be like catastrophically painful, and when they're good, they can be redemptive and transformative and healing. And so we aim to dig in and also give you some practical direction. Like I was thinking, some of the topics that I want to make sure we cover are like, when you're in a relationship with somebody who's experienced a traumatic past, what do you how do you do, what are some guidance and tips for that, right? Like how to approach it. How do I do some work on my my past experiences and how they intrude on my present and affect my relationships. How do mental health issues come into play in relationships, and how do we approach them? So it'll be a variety of targets we have. So we're hope that you'll engage with us, and we'll make sure that our topics of the podcast that we post are pretty clear on like what we're engaging with, and just aiming to kind of draw from both of our backgrounds to really try to offer you as a listener, and also ourselves as we're trying to grow on this, like some really helpful directions to point ourselves so that we can improve our world, right? Like if our world is made up of relationships and they're all empty or false or toxic and painful, that makes for a miserable world. And then when we're miserable, we tend to live in ways that make other people miserable and make life kind of hellish. So, we're interested in trying to participate in the redemptive direction of connecting in relationship and trying to figure out how to get unstuck and reconnected and improve how we understand how to relate with people.
Yeah. And we'd love to hear from you too, listener and viewer. If there's something specifically going on in your relationships or questions that you might have or thoughts, struggles, whatever, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on all the socials, and you can leave a chat message on our podcast stuff. Just find ways to connect us. You can also email us at staringintothesunpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to just hear from you, how to engage with things that matter to you in your relationships, because at the end of the day, that's what we're hoping to do, is provide you as a listener and viewer with something that can help you experience relationships better, specifically in the next few months.
Yeah, with a specific view around understanding that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a spirit. So we want to engage with matters of faith and spirituality as well as psychology, to bring that to bear. So look forward to having you join us as we do that, and we'll on social give you some guidance as to what topics we're hitting up next. And you definitely got to come back to see what kind of shirt John wears next week.
Oh, Walmart, baby, they had a sale. I only buy shirts on sale. That's why the shirt is so ugly. I also have one that's like all these scripts of like Kapow and Kaboom. I bought both of these shirts, and I came home and Heather said,
yes, are
you going to wear that? Like, I said, well, since you said that, then it's
happening. Well, I was made aware that, so I got this from, this is Golden Bell, Colorado. It's a nice little jacket that I got from there. It's a camp that I go to through my church. And I saw it as a jacket. So I wore it like multiple days a week. And my people in my life were like, hey,
you can wear that sweater 4 or 5 days in a row.
And I was mortified. I was like, oh no, what if other people were like, this guy's wearing the same shirt over and over?
It's like you turned into like 70-year-old Rob all of a sudden. Like,
admittedly, I wasn't mortified because I really don't care.
You're right. So, I mean, like, hey, I'm wearing this shirt today. Like, I don't even know what it's about. There's just roses and French language and road signs here. I don't know. There you go.
Wow.
God bless it, man.
So tune in next time. It'll be in, I think our plan is every 2 weeks.
We could do that thing like, what shirt will they wear today?
Oh, man. Well, you can expect mine to be pretty similar.
Probably that jacket, right? Like,
or a polo or a button up or something. But you can expect John to just shock us with something.
well,
So,
I don't know if I want to build it up too much, but I will
no,
I
who
will have a
knows?
shirt on. I
Oh,
guarantee.
thank God.
Like,
Thank God. Well, all right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We encourage you to again subscribe and hit the like button, notification bell on YouTube. Share it with other people when you hear stuff that you love, and interact with us. And we look forward to next time having you join us as we continue staring into the sun.
grace and peace, everybody.